What are the different kind of charges, taxes, levies that a consumer has to pay if they are investing in real estate or they are using real estate?
एज अ डेवलपर मैं तभी किसी को अफोर्डेबिलिटी ऑफर कर पाऊंगा अगर मुझे वो बेनिफिट्स मिलेंगे, नहीं तो मैं अपनी कॉस्ट पे इंकर नहीं करूंगा। लोगों को कई बार ये बड़ी मिसकंसेप्शन होती है कि एक डेवलपर 100 रुपीज की लैंड खरीद रहा है, 50 रुपीज उसको बनाने में लगा रहा है, तो 300 रुपीज की लैंडिंग प्राइस पे बेच रहा है, तो उसमें 100% का मार्जिन कमा रहा होगा, क्योंकि रियल एस्टेट में शायद बहुत पैसा है।
If you buy a ready to move property, then only property taxes or stamp duty is applicable on 10% of the entire value of the property. But if you have bought an under construction apartment, then both the taxes are applicable.
Rental yields in India are very low. Like for example, in Mumbai, maybe you can get 3.54%, but rest of the case it is just 2% of the rental yield you get.
We will incur the expenditure together, and society is only an intermediary body which incurs the expenses and collects it in form of reimbursement from the members.
Over the last few weeks, there has been a news circulating on social media about 18% GST levy on maintenance charges on RWAs. Well, this is not a new news because GST has been there since 2019. But interestingly enough, this has been circulating now on social media. So we thought this is a good time for us to really look at what are the different kind of charges, taxes, levies that a consumer has to pay if they are investing in real estate or they are using real estate per se. And to discuss all these charges, all these taxes, we have got an interesting panel today comprising of chartered accountants, developer, channel partners, and consultants. We'll be discussing a whole lot of issues surrounding both residential and commercial real estate and what kind of charges are there and what can be really done to make it far more attractive for investors and investments to come. Namaskar, I'm Prasun Kumar and you're watching this new episode of The Property Show on MBTV, world's largest real estate online channel. There are charges, taxes at every stage of property investment. When you're investing in a property, you are paying GST, you are paying stamp duty. When you are staying in a property, you are paying property taxes. When you are renting out a property, you are paying taxes there. When you're selling a property, you are paying capital gains tax. So there are all kind of charges and levies that are there at every stage for a buyer. How do we demystify this? How do we understand this better? And to understand this, we have got a stellar panel today. Let me just introduce the panel. In the studios, we have got Mr. Rajat Mohan, who is a chartered accountant and senior partner at AMRG and Associates based out of Delhi NCR. Hi. Joining us online today, we have got Mr. Amol Shimpi, who is co-founder of SAS Investments. We have got Mr. Sumit Mehta, who is a chartered accountant and associated with Paradigm Advisors. We have got Mr. Siddharth Katyal, who is CEO at Bhumika Group. They are developers. And Mr. Vijay Kamboj, who is founder of Brick X Infra Private Limited. They are channel partners based out of Gurugram. Right, so let me first go to our chartered accountants on the panel. Right, let's start with you, Rajat. What are different kind of taxes and charges that are there, and how do we demystify this for an investor in real estate in India?
So, Prasun, I think real estate is one area whereby all the taxes are applicable, and the value is so high that every government, whether it's a state government or a central government or an MCD or anything that you formulate, they're happy to impose a tax because the value is so high. Even if they tax only 30% of the value, still the tax computed and the calculated and in the revenue is so high. So, as you rightly pointed out, first, property tax is applicable across India, which is collected by the state government, state subject, and it differs with every state.
Right.
And the person who is buying a property, if you are a woman, if you are a senior citizen, if you are whatever the case may be. And then there is a tax applicable on the transaction tax, is a GST. If it's an under construction property, GST is applicable over and above your stamp duty. And if it's a constructed, ready to move property, but you bought it after, it's fully completed, you have not bought in process, then no GST is applicable. GST is 0%. And under GST also there are various rates: 1% for affordable housing, 5% for non-affordable, 12% for commercial property.
For ready to move, there is no GST there.
For ready to move, if you have bought after it is being constructed, right? And then there is a GST applicable on the rental portions also. If you are renting out for yourself, for your home, for residential purposes, there is no GST. GST is exempt per se. But if you're buying, if you're renting out a property for commercial purposes, there is an 18% GST. If you are paying certain maintenance charges, which I think is the hot topic, again there is an 18% GST on the same. But of course, it depends whether it is taken by a developer or it is taken by an RWA. There are threshold limits of 7,500 also. I think we will discuss it when we proceed further. And once you sell a property, as you rightly pointed out, capital gains tax is required to be paid. Also, there are transfer charges that the developer or the promoter charges. It's not a government levy, but still
there's a cost.
There's a cost. And this is how many taxes are applicable.
Okay. So Sumit, considering there are 7-8 different kind of taxes that Rajat just spoke about, how does it really impact the cost of ownership of a property? If you can demystify that for someone who wants to invest.
Very good afternoon to all you all and the viewers. Now, Rajat, my brother and a fellow chartered accountant, has very elaborately explained on the things. To give you a magnitude of how the taxes will work, let us take a hypothetical situation. Say, take for instance, a property you are buying is for 1,000 rupees. Very hypothetical round figure numbers. Now, say, assuming, see, normally in real estate, the thumb rule is 1 for land, 1 for construction, 1 for profit. So ideally, you're buying a land for around 300 rupees. 300 rupees is construction, hypothetically, and 400 or so is by profit. First thing first, on 300 rupees of land, when you are buying it, you are ending up paying stamp duty, which is anywhere from the rate of 3 to 7-8%, depending on the state. Some states are even higher. There are also surcharges and other things, and infrastructure surcharge. Like in Bombay, we have a 1% infrastructure surcharge. So it goes up to 7% in Bombay. So assuming 7% is a hypothetical number we take. So on 300 rupees of land, you have around 7% of that. So around 20 odd rupees is that particular thing when you have bought the land. Now on construction, 300 odd rupees, assuming 1/4 to 30, 25 to 30% is just cement. So assuming if we take 30, so around 100 rupees of cement, you are paying 28% GST, 28%. So 28 rupees you are paying only on cement. Thereafter you have steel, which is another around 20 odd percent. So on around another 75 rupees you are paying 18%. Then you have labor charges, except for affordable housing where it is 5%, otherwise it is higher. Now what happens is when you look at the whole picture, your labor GST and everything comes to at not less than 70-80 rupees, all components included, including rentals that you pay on things like scaffolding and everything. So, and thereafter you end up paying again stamp duty. And the funny thing is, real estate, when they are charging, when it is under construction, see, it is considered real estate as per GST only when the occupation certificate is received. So the building is fully constructed and you apply for the local body for getting an occupation certificate. Before that, it is GST has deemed the whole thing, including the cost of land, as a service. So land, which is actually in real estate, which is actually governed under the Transfer of Property Act and subject to only stamp duty, becomes a service. And you have, again, when you sell that particular thing, along with GST, you end up paying 5 to 7 or 10% stamp duty on the transfer of the property from the builder to the buyer. So if you hypothetically look at the whole thing, the buyer on his 100 rupee or 100 rupee that he pays for buying a real estate, he ends up paying anywhere from 30 to 40, 45 rupees as taxes to the government, and the balance is the actual cost of real estate. That is the magnitude of burden that a home buyer pays just to acquire a piece of house for himself. This is the anomaly of.
Interesting perspective you have given, and I think that simplifies it for users quite a lot. Up to 40% is the impact anyway, right? 60/40 is how it gets divided. Now, if it is so high, and this is what users are bearing as a cost, then let me go to Amol. Amol, you know, if real estate has been, is actually one of the primary drivers of economy, right? It is one of the primary job creators, construction and real estate, and so on and so forth. Do you think there is a case for simplifying this, reducing this, and would that therefore mean that the industry, the sector, the category would benefit and grow faster?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Real estate, construction, and infrastructure, they are the second largest employment generating sector in India after agriculture. Because if anyone has to leave his agriculture job for any reason, he has something to do in construction. We absorb him in construction work in one way or the other. So this particular sector gives employment. At the same time, close to 350 to 400 ancillary industries are also depending upon real estate, construction, and infrastructure industry. So in a way, it's a huge job generating sector, both at the site and also at offsite. So considering the potential of this particular sector, the taxation burden, definitely there is a point which can be rationalized over here. Both my CA friends on this particular panel has traced this particular point. I would just add one thing, that having interacted with a number of Mumbai and Pune developers, I can say this, that they have started calling government as a silent partner in their project. In a way, they say that not only the taxation, but even the development charges, the various duties and deposits which they pay, sometimes that goes up to about 30 to 35% of the top line that is taken by the government only in the projects. Again, when the land value is high and the sale value is high, higher the percentage is taken by government. And as you go down towards northern part of Mumbai, where the real estate is little affordable as compared to south, then the percentage comes down because the deposits and duties by the municipal corporations also come down. So in a way, there is a great scope, I would say, for government to look at this particular sector in a comprehensive manner, and they can think that how they can rationalize the burden. I would not say completely reduce the burden of taxation, but it can be rationalized so that the employments in this particular sector can be generated.
Okay. Siddharth, coming to you, we just discussed that if the cost of ownership is 100 rupees, the actual cost is only 60 rupees, and 40 rupees is going out in terms of various taxes and levies and charges and so on and so forth. Now, this 60 rupees that we are talking about, there in itself there are taxes which a developer has to pay. There are various kind of charges that a developer has to pay. So maybe the actual cost of ownership can be much lower if a lot of these things can actually be simplified. What's your take?
As a developer, we are paying taxes on everything, starting from day one of acquisition of land, whether it is the registration charges, whether it is the agreement to sales that we do, whether it is the basic minimum taxes or duties or any kind of charges which are supposed to be paid to the government or the concerned authorities for the primary approvals also that we have to take in terms of a project, in terms of an integrated township, and all these kinds of things. See, ultimately, any developer would like to develop a good quality project at an affordable price if he or she wants to sustain in the market for a long period of time. Because affordability is the key with luxury, because the desires are many, but if the cost is has to be borne by somebody, so ultimately that cost is passed to the customer. If the government is not considering the real estate sector as in a serious form, I would say, because we are actually contributing 30% to the GDP and 18% to the overall employment of people. And in this kind of a scenario, if you talk about any other industry which are receiving the MSME benefits, interest loans at a lower rate of interest cost, so that the products can become cheaper. But the same policies are not being adopted for the real estate sector. This is the reason that the land cost, the development cost, and the overall product cost is increasing day by day, making it unaffordable for people to buy.
Right. So, Vijay, as a channel partner, tell me, you are dealing with investors day in and day out, right? What sentiments, what impacts do you see? Are we, considered one of the highly taxed asset class any which way? And therefore, in your experience, how much do you think it will help if these burdens are reduced from an investment point of view?
अगर पर्टिकुलर अगर देखा जाए तो बाइंग के अंदर जैसे कमर्शियल प्रॉपर्टी अगर हम जैसे लेट्स सपोज बाय करते हैं एज पर कंपेयर टू अदर रियल रियल स्टेट इन रेजिडेंशियल में अफोर्डेबल या लग्जरी अपार्टमेंट या कमर्शियल में देखें तो तीनों को कंपेयर करते हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं सबसे ज्यादा हायर टैक्स कहीं ना कहीं जैसे देखा जाए तो कमर्शियल पे आता है अप्रोक्स 12%। और जैसे मेजरली हम कमर्शियल सेल भी करते हैं तो काफी बायर्स के इसके ऊपर ये क्वेरी भी रहती है कि कमर्शियल के ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा हायर टैक्स है। बट एक्चुअली हम कंपेयर करते हैं तो देखो कोई भी इंडस्ट्री है जहाँ पे जिस भी चीज के अंदर जितना इनकम सोर्स सेफ है, सिक्योर है और ज्यादा अर्निंग इनकम का कहीं ना कहीं स्कोप होता है, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं टैक्सेस गवर्नमेंट ने उसी के अकॉर्डिंगली डिजाइन किए होते हैं। तो कोई भी अगर हम देखते हैं तो टैक्सेस जैसे कमर्शियल के ऊपर 12% का टैक्स है, ये मेजरली हर किसी बायर जो रेजिडेंशियल या किसी और अदर इंडस्ट्री के अंदर इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं तो उनका ये एक क्वेश्चन रहते ही रहता है। बट बहुत सारे टैक्सेस ऐसे होते हैं अगर हम कोई भी प्रॉपर्टी बाय कर रहे हैं, हम उसे लेट्स सपोज कंपनी के नाम पे ले रहे हैं, तो अगर हमारी कंपनी बेसिकली जीएसटी नंबर है तो बहुत सारी टैक्स का इनपुट क्रेडिट हमें मिलता भी है।
And I'll come to different asset class as well, residential versus commercial, and how does the interplay is there. I wanted to touch upon, housing for all is one of the key missions of the present government, and under PMAY, both urban and rural, there are multiple SOAPs, there are multiple initiatives being undertaken per se. Now, affordable housing, mid-segment housing, premium stroke luxury housing. Rajat, what kind of taxations, levies, charges, how do they differ when you look at affordable versus mid-segment versus a premium luxury residential unit? How do these charges differ?
Okay. So, Prasun, first of all, I'll take a step back and I'll tell you, in India, as per the Constitution of India, any taxes that you want to impose on immovable property, it has to be a state government which has to impose a tax, right? Which is a stamp duty in my understanding, whatever the rate is.
Sure.
Okay. And GST is applicable on supply of goods or services.
Yes.
Which is very clear. Something that is immovable property cannot be goods or services.
Correct.
But if you buy a ready-to-move property, then only property taxes or stamp duty is applicable on 10% of the entire value of the property. But if you have bought an under construction apartment, then both the taxes are applicable. So basically what we are saying, if you have bought an apartment which is under construction, it is immovable property as per one law, whereas as per other law, it is a movable property or a service. So, two laws themselves are not aligned per se, because now what happens is, if we cannot tax something directly, then we are trying to tax something indirectly. We cannot say that this is an immovable property. Now we are saying the apartment that you bought is an immovable property till the time it's constructed. You cannot move it, right? So both the taxes are applicable. Now, that is basically a very big irony, and the sector is pained on this, because the most expensive item that you have ever bought in your lifetime and will ever buy in your lifetime, at least in India, will never be cars, will always be a piece of immovable property. That is why the component of cash is so high. Because if 1,000 rupees, property I want to show it, declare it as only 300. So that my overall taxes come lesser in stamp duty as well as.
So it impacts compliance as well, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So now coming to the taxation with regard to affordable and non-affordable, affordable housings are taxable, residential one, at 1% of the gross value of the whatever you have bought, and non-affordable is taxable at 5% of the gross value.
Okay.
This is the GST component.
Okay.
Whereas, and these are without input tax credit. So if a builder is building an affordable or a non-affordable residential part, whatever taxes he has paid on account of cement, steel, contractors, labor, chartered accountants, professionals, whatever it may be, he'll not get an input tax credit. So very basically saying, if you have paid 28% on cement and 18% on steel, 18% on labor services, all that is non-creditable, all that will add up and it has to be finally borne by the consumer. So it's not only 1%, it's 1% of the output as well as
Plus
the
the
input
additional
taxes
burden.
that are being transferred to
Yes,
you.
yes.
So this is about the affordable residential and affordable non-affordable residential.
Okay.
So the second component is a commercial part whereby the credits are available. Now government has very smartly kept the tax rate to be at 12% on a higher side, saying that however we will allow you the input tax credit to the builders and the developers.
Okay.
Now they can take an input tax credit, but the output tax is as high as the gross value 12%. Over and above on all these items, there will be a stamp duty, there will be a property tax.
Sure.
And we are not talking about maintenance as of now.
Yes, we did talk about that 40% thing,
Yes.
right? Coming to Sumit, who so nicely explained that 40-60 ratio. Real estate, the affordable part or the mid segment of the residential real estate is mostly for end usage, right? But the high end real estate, the premium to luxury end real estate is also there are a lot of investors also coming in there. For a play, and that is the most taxed part of it, right? What is it that you think can be unlocked as a value if that gets rationalized, and is it a possibility that it can get rationalized?
When I look at this whole policy making very closely, I see that the old pre-license Raj era, socialist mindset continues even now. So there is a differentiation made that there is a affordable housing which is for the lower income group, for the middle class people. So tax them a bit less at 1%, and the people who want luxury real estate, okay, they should end up paying a higher tax. This is the same logic which worked in India in the license Raj, that if you are buying a car, or even now when you look at it, a car with a chassis size less than a particular length, and a car with a chassis size more than a particular length, the tax rates change, GST rates are different. Rather long back, I had an interaction with the chief commissioner of GST of Maharashtra, and I asked them that why aren't you giving input tax credit on rentals and on this? And he said that we have not yet achieved our revenue target. So once we achieve, then we can consider it. So this is the kind of answer a very senior official gives to us when we are talking about the tax problem. So I don't expect government to reduce, rather even expecting that would be a waste of time, that we can expect them to reduce the taxation for luxury real estate or ultra premium real estate in the country.
Okay, let me take that to then Siddharth. As a developer, what is it that you would want, in terms of simplification of this entire complicated levies and structures and everything else that is there, that you think will spur the real growth of the industry?
Well, I'll simplify it in English very simply for the viewers, क्योंकि आपके जितने भी viewers हैं, they are all kind of categories. तो कैसे किसी भी सेक्टर को अगर ग्रोथ इंजन बनाना है तो उसको incentives देने पड़ेंगे. If you are not giving incentives and you are not simplifying the structure, तो आप रियल एस्टेट के बारे में अगर बात करते हैं तो 250 अलाइड सेक्टर्स इसके साथ जुड़े हुए हैं जो उसको डायरेक्टली या इनडायरेक्टली सपोर्ट करते हैं. सो हाउ मच ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन इज हैपनिंग, हाउ मच ऑफ रिसोर्सेस आर बीइंग यूटिलाइज, इसको गवर्नमेंट को समझना पड़ेगा. आज बायर पे जीएसटी, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी, कैपिटल गेन टैक्स, रेंट टैक्स हर कुछ लग जाता है और उसको मतलब फॉर ऑल अगर आप करेंगे फ्रॉम अ डेवलपर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, तो जैसे माय फ्रेंड हैज ऑलरेडी मेंशन्ड दैट वी आर नॉट एक्चुअली गेटिंग अ टैक्स इनपुट फॉर द सेम, क्रेडिट मिलता नहीं उसका. तो अगर वो क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा तो अल्टीमेटली वो किसी की पॉकेट में तो जाएगा ही जाएगा. वी नीड गवर्नमेंट टू टेक स्टेप्स to first make things affordable which is in their hand. आप stamp duty is your cost. जैसे sir gave an example that certain commodities on which income is high, गवर्नमेंट उसके ऊपर आपके टैक्सेस ज्यादा लगा देती है. पेट्रोल की सेल अगर ऑल ओवर इंडिया इट्स अ नेसेसिटी, तो मैक्सिमम टैक्सेस ऑन पेट्रोल. इसी तरह घर या आज किसी भी तरह फॉर्म का जो रियल एस्टेट है, इट यूज्ड टू बी अ लग्जरी अर्लियर, क्योंकि देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ माइग्रेशन व्हिच वाज गोइंग ऑन. लोग अपने पेरेंटल हाउस में रहते थे. अगर टायर 3 सिटी में रहने वाला आदमी टायर 2 में आता है, तो उसकी एस्पिरेशन होती है कि वो वहां पे एक घर बना ले. टायर 2 वाला टायर 1 में जाता है, या टायर 1 वाला मेट्रो में जाता है, तो वो इसी एस्पिरेशन के साथ जाता है कि आई एम गोइंग फॉर अ बेटर लिविंग, आई एम अपग्रेडिंग माई होल लिविंग एक्सपीरियंस. दैट इज द मेन कंसर्न. मैं बढ़िया जॉब करूंगा, मेरे बच्चे अच्छे स्कूलों में पढ़ेंगे, मेरे को अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मिलेगा, मैं और राइज करना चाहता हूँ. तो बट गवर्नमेंट हैज टू सपोर्ट इन रेवेन्यू जनरेट करने के 2 तरीके हैं. या तो आप टैक्सेशन को हाई कीजिए, या आप वॉल्यूम ऑफ सेल्स को बढ़ने में प्रमोट कीजिए. वॉल्यूम ऑफ सेल्स तभी प्रमोट होगी जब वो अफोर्डेबल होगी और विद क्वालिटी होगी. क्योंकि एज वी आर नाउ वन ऑफ द टॉप 5 इकोनॉमी प्लेयर्स इन द वर्ल्ड, तो लुक पीपल आर लुकिंग अप टू अस दैट व्हाट आर वी डूइंग. एक साइड हम मेट्रो सिटीज के अंदर इतने अच्छे अच्छे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. वी आर डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ प्लानिंग. इंडिया इज एक्चुअली द इकोनॉमी इज ग्रोइंग एट अ वेरी वेरी फास्ट पेस. बट आप अपनी इंटरनल अगर झांक के देखेंगे, तो अपनी सोच को या अपनी मॉडर्नाइजेशन पॉलिसी को आप वो स्पीड नहीं दे पा रहे, जिसकी वजह से आपका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर विच इज, मैं अगेन दोबारा रिपीट करता हूं, contributing 13% of the GDP. We are not even accepting it as an industry. तो कि जब तक आप उसको इंडस्ट्री एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे, तो आप उसके अंदर रिफॉर्म्स ला ही नहीं पाएंगे. आज रियल एस्टेट को एज एन इंडस्ट्री जब तक आप एक्सेप्ट नहीं करवाएंगे, तो उसके अंदर वो सारी चीजें, वो अफोर्डेबिलिटी फैक्टर नहीं आ पाएगा. एज अ डेवलपर मैं तभी किसी को अफोर्डेबिलिटी ऑफर कर पाऊंगा अगर मुझे वो बेनिफिट्स मिलेंगे. नहीं तो मैं अपनी कॉस्ट पे इंकर नहीं करूंगा. लोगों को कई बार ये बड़ी मिसकंसेप्शन होती है कि एक डेवलपर 100 रुपीज की लैंड खरीद रहा है, 50 रुपीज उसको बनाने में लगा रहा है, तो 300 रुपीज की लैंडिंग प्राइस पे बेच रहा है, तो उसमें 100% का मार्जिन कमा रहा होगा, क्योंकि रियल एस्टेट में शायद बहुत पैसा है. जबकि आपको जान के इट विल बी वेरी वेरी सरप्राइजिंग व्हेन यू एक्चुअली सिट ऑन द ड्राइंग बोर्ड and as a developer who believes in delivering on time, your margins are not more than 20% after all the costs being deducted, after all the taxation being paid. So the net profit after, I'm not talking about the EBITDA, I am talking about the net profit which comes to your pocket is not more than 10 to 15%, and that too over a period of time. उसकी आप कैपिटल रनिंग कॉस्ट देख लीजिए या दूसरी रनिंग कॉस्ट देख लीजिए, सो यू आर एट पार. आपका मार्जिन ज्यादा नहीं है, उल्टा आपकी टेंशन ज्यादा हो गई है. जबकि ये आज की डेट में आने वाले 20 साल, 25 साल, 30 साल की नीड है. Because as we are progressing, as more job opportunities are being created in India, infrastructure is something which is going to develop for the next 50 years, 100 years, and it is a ever growing process.
So Amol, we get this perspective that the burden of over taxation, whether it's on the developer side or you look at as a buyer's point of view, ultimately it's the buyer who's bearing the cost, either which way. Added to that, I wanted to come on this recent news that was circulating, that there'll be 18% GST on the maintenance charges, collected by RWAs per se, right? Now, it's not about cost of ownership, it's also about cost of living, right? And this starts impacting your cost of living if you want to stay in a well-planned and a well constructed hygienic place. Now, such high GST rates, how much do you think are justified, or is this something which really cannot be done away with?
Before going into this impact over the rental housing, I would just like to add one particular point that I did my architecture in 1993. I passed out in my architecture and entered Mumbai real estate segment. At that time, the developers were easily making 50, 60, 70% of profit. And today that particular profit, net profit, has come down to 10, 12%. There are certain projects where the developers are commenting that their contractors earned more than them in that particular project. So that's the situation of a construction and when people are purchasing. When it is renting, then the situation is such that the maintenance now is applicable. of if the maintenance goes over 7,500, then 18% GST is applicable. So in that particular case, what happens is that the rental yields in India, I would look from that perspective, that rental yields in India are very low. Like for example, in Mumbai, maybe you can get 3.54%, but rest of the case, it is just 2% of the rental yield you get. And then in this particular case, you also ask the tenant to buy to take that 18% hit. Generally, it doesn't take that particular hit. You have to go by market, and sometimes you have to absorb that 18% also. So then what happens is that the owner here basically he has to bear the brunt of this particular 18%. He has to bear, and in fact, his net return by renting the property may even drop if the maintenance is higher than 7,500. So in this particular case, the what can be done is that the limit of 7,500, which has been set, is set for a very, very long time. So considering inflation and other such kind of parameters, the first and foremost 7,500 limit should be suitably increased at least to 10,000 or 12,500. That is what expectation of the landlords would be, and also the tenants.
No, sure. I think you make a fair point because sustainability has been one of the biggest push at this point of time, and every new construction is mandated to have sewage treatment plants, water reharvesting plants, and multiple other kind of maybe solar systems. There are multiple other kind of sustainable ideas. They're all to be built in, and sustainability has a cost of its own anyway, right? And it's not a cost of setting up these units; it's also a cost of maintaining these units over a lifetime of the building, say 40 years, till then, and it's the end consumer, the person who's staying there, the owner who's going to bear this, right? If you look at it from this particular angle, Rajat, this entire thing of 18% levy or GST on maintenance, do you think it's an overburden?
So as a consumer, even a 1% tax, you'll always feel it's an overburden. As a consumer, you don't want to pay anything, and you want to have the best of the services from Government of India. So yes, we want to see the efficiency in government. See, whatever we are paying, they should efficiently utilize our resources. If they will not tax me here, they'll tax me somewhere else. The corpus has to be collected. We are a fiscal deficit country. We are not a fiscal positive country. So the collections have to be made, and it has to be taxes. But I absolutely agree with your point. When there is so much of ESG push, when you are, incurring such a heavy one-time cost and a regular cost on solar panels, on water, on cleanliness, this will push up the prices of your maintenance.
Right.
If this push up the prices of the maintenance, then
so the idea at the point that Sumit was.
Yes. So idea of setting up a limit of now 7,500, previously it was 5,000, was that people at the lower strata of the society, maybe LIG, MIG, should not be bearing the brunt of 18% or whatever the taxes are. They should be taxed their cost. Now with ESG push, even these LIG, MIGs have to implement those strategies, and their maintenance will go up. And once it goes up and crosses the threshold limit, they will be, be pushed to pay a tax. So let us suppose, if your maintenance is 7,400 per month per member, the tax is 0. But if it goes to 7,600 per month, then the tax is 18%, almost 20%. It's too high the moment you move from a smaller, there's a small increase. And I'll tell you, in September 2024, we heard a lot of voice in the, informal channel that government is considering, although the agenda was not picked up in 53rd or 54th council meeting, to increase this from 7,500 to suitably to 9,000 or 10,000. I think this agenda will be pushed up, and they will pick up this agenda, and this will be revised sooner or later. But yes, it has to be revised.
Okay. विजय, आप जब इन्वेस्टर्स के साथ डील कर रहे हैं और ये सारे इतने सारे कॉम्प्लिकेशंस जो हैं टैक्स को लेकर के या डिफरेंट चार्जेस को लेकर के जो आते हैं, इससे व्हाट इज योर टेक? इन्वेस्टर्स जो हैं वो कितने डेटर हो जाते हैं? अगर इसको सिंप्लीफाई करेंगे तो इन्वेस्टर्स का इन्वेस्ट करना और रियल एस्टेट का देयरफॉर ग्रो करना कितना आसान होगा?
बिल्कुल। एक्चुअली देखो, क्या है कि रियल एस्टेट, जैसे कि आप और हम सब जानते हैं कि इंडिया के अंदर एक सेकंड लार्जेस्ट एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेटर है। अब उसमें क्या है कि कुछ टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर ऐसे बने हुए हैं जो कि कहीं ना कहीं इसमें अपना ग्रोथ को थोड़ा सा कहीं ना कहीं एक स्टॉपेज देते हैं। जैसे अगर हम पहले भी मैंने थोड़ा कमर्शियल टॉपिक के ऊपर डिस्कशन किया था कि जैसे रेजिडेंशियल और कमर्शियल हम देखते हैं तो एक बहुत बड़ा एक गैप आ जाता है टैक्स का। तो कमर्शियल पे जैसे मैंने बताया 12% का टैक्स आ जाता है, प्लस उसके अलावा अगर सेकंड मेंटेनेंस आ जाती है उस पे 18% का जीएसटी है। देन अगर कमर्शियल बायर की प्रॉपर्टी जब रेडी होती है या रेडी टू मूव इन वो बाय करता है, चलो उस पे टैक्स तो नहीं लगता, बट उससे देन वो किसी टेनेंट को किसी लीजिंग पार्टनर को वो प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे देता है, तो उसके ऊपर भी फिर उसे फिट आउट के ऊपर भी एक बहुत बड़ा अप्रोक्स 18% का टैक्स उसे पे करना पड़ता है, जो कि आई थिंक वो अपना कहीं ना कहीं उस पे रिबेट उस टैक्स के ऊपर रिबेट भी नहीं मिलता। तो कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जो कि कहीं ना कहीं अगर ये चीजें थोड़ी सी चेंज कर दी जाए तो कमर्शियल लीजिंग को भी काफी एक चीज सपोर्ट मिलेगी।
Let's focus on solutions for a moment, and I'm trying to take the playbook from Canada. Canada exempted GST completely on homes worth up to $1 million for first-time buyers, right? And for example, Rajat, you were mentioning that different, if you are a woman, there's a differential
Yes.
tax that you have to pay. If you're a senior citizen, there is some rebate, etc., etc. Could one solution be that the first-time home buyer, okay, or first-time investor who doesn't own a property as such, can be given more exemptions, more relief, and would that help therefore the industry?
I'll be very honest with you. And Canada is a very different demographic.
No, sure, that was just an example. The idea
No,
is,
so I'm
can
yeah.
you give it to first-time buyers, right? Because the
Yes.
idea is to obviously grow the sector. Idea is also to help the industry grow, because it's a largest contributor to GDP and generates so much of income. Do you think that's a good proposition?
So yes, so India is a land of 1.4 billion people. Tomorrow you talk about first-time home buyers. You have every family with 4 people. They all will become first-time home buyers.
Sure.
You'll see money going from dad to his son to his wife to his daughter-in-law, and then everyone buying property. So that becomes a modus operandi of evading taxes, whereby you actually are not a single person, but you have insured 4 5, which happens today also under income tax law, whereby people channelize their incomes and not pay taxes. So that is a risk area. And the moment you introduce exemptions in any scheme, you start distorting things. You start giving people a leeway to not pay taxes by falling into because the moment you give exemption, people will say, I'm a first time home buyer. And what is the procedure to check if you are not the first time home buyer? There is no land records digitalized. You have a property in Punjab and you go and buy a property in Kerala. Managing it on admin level is very, very difficult. So in a structure like India, I will not propose. I will not believe that this will yield. It sounds good to have a lot of exemptions as a consumer, as a buyer, but I don't think it will yield a lot of results. Instead of this, I believe, as you talked about solution, it's a high time that we bring in this stamp duty into GST.
Okay.
We subsume stamp duty also into GST law, and then you are saying that we are one nation, one taxes. So one nation, one tax, have a single tax on the real estate. Let people also know it's
but that
not
could be far more complicated, because ultimately it's a state subject, and getting to a consensus on stamp duty being subsumed in GST would be far more contentious an issue.
Absolutely, but we have to work in the greater good of the country. If we give a 1 million or a 1 crore or 10 crore exemption, nothing tax is imposed, and if it will not work out, I'm not an economist.
Okay.
So I'm not in favor of giving a lot of exemption, distorting the scheme.
Okay. Let me take to other panelists. Amol, I'm again coming back to the same point. First time investor, first time home buyer, right? Why should a first time home buyer not be exempted from a lot of these charges and a heavy burden of taxation? Because even if the person has an ancestral property, say for example, and other properties per se, but any investment done by an individual in creating an asset anywhere in the country is good for the GDP of the country, right? So why shouldn't this be encouraged that the first time home buying can be exempted?
Why I completely agree with the chartered accountant Rajat's observation that people in India, they basically find various loopholes when they are basically doing investments or when they are basically getting taxed, that they become very imaginative at that particular point of time. But again, say if they suppose if they are buying a house in the city where they are not staying and they simply want to rent that particular house to an IT professional. So in this particular case, he is basically adding to this particular rental economy. So in this particular case, if a second house is also there, but that is not being occupied and rented out, I think some sort of incentive should be planned for that particular work. We always talk in this particular country about rental housing. I remember I started attending seminars and conferences on real estate since 2001. I'm attending. Every time people speak about rental housing, but no proper methodology has been worked out about rental housing in this particular country. The various rent control acts of the states has been a kind of a deterrent into this. But I now believe that the time has definitely come to think about the incentives for rental housing also and working out the methodology in which the rental housing can be given and can also be taken back whenever is required. In this country, giving incentives is very easy, but taking off those particular incentives or removing people when they are not eligible becomes a kind of a becomes a very tough situation over here. Land and real estate in the concurrent list. The state governments also has a lot of say in this particular part. And as Mr. Rajat said, that all should agree towards the common good. That is what we should look at. But I think rental housing is something we should have a complete relook at the rental housing so that it becomes a profitable for the owner also, for the tenant, and for the developers who can create a stock, particularly for rental housing. If the policies are good, developers will definitely do that.
Okay, so you make a case for rental housing that ways. Sumit, I take the same question to you, same pointer to you. First time home buyer, should there be exemption?
See, first thing is, as per NSSO survey, 32% of the homes sold are to first home buyers.
Okay.
Now that means nearly 1/3 of the housing stock that is sold every year is to first home buyers. Now, when I look at it from a revenue point of view, means from a IAS, IRS officer and a government point of view, that means foregoing around 1/3 of the tax revenue of the country. Okay. And this is where there will always be a challenge when we are kind of making representations to the government. At the same time, I would also like to highlight that in case of mid or for under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana for affordable housing, which is around 45 lakh rupees in urban cities and lower for the for tier 2 cities, you have a 2,67,000 rupees subsidy on interest, which is given to the people over there who are buying their first home under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Now, what my brother Rajat has said is real, that whenever government comes in with the idea that we want to give some kind of concession to first home buyers, then everybody will become a first home buyer, and that is going to be a challenge for the government, also from a point of view of compliance and implementation of the law. And we also have a builder here. Government at the end of the day will come up with the idea, and Rajat will agree with me that you have to give us 7,500 declarations that he is a first home buyer. And if in case later, if something comes up, then the builder will be stuck up. In the interest of the builder and also from a government point of view, I believe that there should not be any incentive, because if in case government comes up with the incentive, the paperwork and the differentiation, then again the complexity of returns showing that these many are first home, this many are second home, the compliance cost of that, the headache and accounting, it will go on to the builder. It's better to keep things very simple. However, at the same time, we were discussing about in the previous discussion about 18% taxation on rentals. Here, I want to raise a very legal aspect which is not raised by anyone till now, even in the mainstream media, and that is society that is collecting the maintenance is considered as a registered dealer or an unregistered dealer. So it is considered as a seller or a service provider. And guys, this is something which is beyond logic, because society is formed under the doctrine. In taxation, there is a doctrine, a principle of taxation, that is doctrine of mutuality. That we all, when we have a condominium, when we have a block of apartments, We come together to say that we'll manage together. We will incur the expenditure together, and society is only an intermediary body which incurs the expenses and collects it in form of reimbursement from the members. So here, society is not a business person like a builder or a chartered accountant or a consultant who is giving service to the members. It is a body formed by the members themselves to provide, to consume the services that they are using themselves. So this is something that is not challenged in the court, and if there is some good constitutional lawyer and he raises this issue in the Supreme Court in the constitutional bench, okay, then under the principle of rather the doctrine of mutuality, I can assure you that this whole idea will be challenged in the court and courts may turn it down. I'll give you an example that courts have been very proactive on this thing. Rather, there was a previous incidence of double taxation in case of ocean freight. I don't want to go into technicals, but your viewers can get a drift of what I'm trying to say. And Gujarat High Court said that you cannot do double taxation. You can't tax the same thing twice. And thereafter, Supreme Court also said that you cannot tax the same thing twice. Now, if the legal principle is raised and it is taken to the Supreme Court, this whole idea of having a service tax on the society, if in case it is more than 7,500, it will be, to look at it from a very structured and a positive point of view in favor of the consumer. But here, unfortunately, nobody has taken it to the Supreme Court, and somebody should do it, really, honestly speaking. Even maybe the builders here should take this up with the Supreme Court.
Okay, you raise an interesting point. I wish we had a lawyer on the panel, but I'm sure people will be hearing you, and we'll see what one can make out of that. So, Siddharth, I wanted to come to you. From a solution perspective. Therefore, we have been discussing what is it that can be done to really improve things and reduce this complexity. What would be your take?
See, I totally agree on a point that if you introduce it for first-time buyers, so it is very difficult to do any kind of differentiation. That who is the first one to buy and who's not the first one to buy it. Neither you can do it on age category, or neither you can do it whether he already has a property in a particular state or not, because we have not introduced the concept of property passbook that was supposed to be introduced 5 years back. So it is irrelevant to do that. But here, what the government can do is, in order to promote the sale of more of real estate inventory, they should give special initiatives to under construction properties, so that the overall cost to the customer reduces, plus everybody gets to take the advantage of that. And there should be a timeline which should be set as a penalty upon the developers. Being a developer, I am saying this, that in case the developer does not fulfill his responsibility within a stipulated time frame, then the developer will bear that additional cost and give the benefit to the customer. So everybody will be in the square. हर एक को ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, अगर आप किसी को फैसिलिटी दे रहे हो तो फैसिलिटी के साथ उसको अकाउंटेबिलिटी और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी दो. So this will help in increasing the sales, increasing the revenue base, as well as the revenue for the government also.
Okay, all right. So, viewers, there are multiple perspectives emerging here, right from how the rental income can be looked at, to how RWA should be taxed, to how under construction properties should be looked at, and all of these can be part of the solution. The fact is that the panel agrees that there is complexity around so much of taxation and so much of levies that a consumer has to go through, that all kind of charges, no matter whichever way you're looking at it, ultimately gets passed on to the consumer, and there is no winner in this game, as it seems. We will continue coming back with such interesting topics and provide you perspectives and point of views of experts. Keep watching The Property Show on NBTV. Thank you.